Hey everyone, welcome to the Sounds Profitable Deep Dive series. Today we're going to take a different approach and focus on a core piece of technology called VAST. What it is, how it impacts podcasting today, and what we need to do to take advantage of its full potential. And to accomplish all that, I've got Caleb Mansfield, VP of Partner Success at ArtsAI. Caleb, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Always a pleasure.
So Caleb, let's kick things off with breaking it down as simple as possible. What is VAST?
Yeah, so a VAST tag, the acronym stands for Video Ad Serving Template, right? So if you've worked in media for a while, you might have seen VAST tags come up in the video space. And you might also be wondering why we're talking about a video template or a video ad serving template when we're talking about podcasting. But a VAST tag can be utilized in other media types. It has been utilized in the streaming world for a while, and now there are hosting platforms that are starting to accept it in the podcasting space as well. Essentially, what a VAST tag does is it instructs a media player how to retrieve an ad from another ad server, right? So basically, the video player or the media player is communicating with another ad server as to which ad or should an ad be served to this specific user. And so while it was generated by the IAB a while ago for video ads, it most definitely can be used in the audio space. And we would really love to see it start being utilized and accepted specifically in the podcasting space.
Yeah. Well, so there was a time where they had DAS, digital audio ad serving template. And the idea around that was that it would be different enough. And I think that what everybody realized is that VAST had gotten popularity. We were already copying aspects of VAST for DAST, and it was a smaller subset, especially at the time, and still absolutely now. So they merged the code bases. So VAST can handle audio or video formats, making that really successful. And the mindset here, like you said, is a lot of this happens client side. I mean, that's the origination of it, right? Like, because the media player is on my computer or my web browser or on my phone, it's the app. And that is very common in other ad serving areas of digital media, that instead of providing just the asset back to the website, right? Like just sending the banner image and all of that, you're sending something that executes a bit of code on the client side. And so that could be JavaScript, it was iframes, there's all these things, right, that can execute on the client's device. And VAST was the video and the audio version of it. Now in podcasting, we lack the client side aspect of it, but VAST is expanded and it works for server side just as well. And so the VAST tag, I believe, would be the response aspect of it, or the larger like executed part. And then there's also the VAST URL, which is like the destination you would call to. Is that correct?
Exactly. Spot on. Yep.
And so we're talking about basically, instead of my hosting platform putting up an audio, like an MP3 file for the ad, instead of putting that MP3, I'm putting a URL in there that calls another ad server, likely owned by the brand itself, right? That's the agency or the brand maintains that VAST ad server to give them a little bit more control.
Yeah. So we would provide VAST tags the same, or I'm saying we as ArtsAI, but the brand or the technology would provide VAST tags the same way you'd provide a third-party impression tracker. The main difference here is that the VAST URL, as you said, can have a plethora of creatives uploaded into it, and so you're not setting up one creative to one tag, right? And having all that work being done on the hosting platform by the network where you're setting up ad, and there's no decision making being done as to which ad should be served. And so, the VAST tag is hosted by a ad server. ArtsAI has that type of technology where we create VAST tags. We have decision-making capabilities, which we can get into. But any brand or any advertiser can host a VAST tag as well with their own ad server.
And when we think about it as an ad server, right, your ad server gets all that information when the person goes to download the podcast. So this VAST tag, this VAST URL also gets all that forwarded there. So we're talking about the level of decisioning there, right? Like when I set up the campaign in my platform, if you bought, say, just targeted to Texas, because that's where I am, and you only wanted, I don't know, like you wanted to let's just say Texas for this example here. I could use my ad server to target geolocation on there. Your VAST tag could also say, I only want Texas on there, so that if there's a mismatch between the two and I somehow serve outside of Texas, you can reject that ad call, right? You can respond back with no ad or like a PSA ad or something if you need to fill with it.
Completely. Yeah. We've done a lot of great work. One example that this comes up with a lot is sports books and sports betting companies. There's a lot of different laws and regulation around which states you can do certain bets in. Can you do betting at all in those states? And a lot of the information that people have about the users is kind of the first party data about where they signed up when it comes to geolocation. But as we know, users travel outside their state, outside their DMAs. And so through VAST tagging capabilities, we can catch that through certain data points, certain metadata that we're receiving about where the user's device is currently located. And as you said, we can stop the ad from being served or serve some form of control ad, like a PSA ad. So we've seen it work really well in a lot of industries where it's not just where they would like the ad to be served, it's actually legally where they can or cannot serve the ad. So there's a lot more kind of stakes to messing that up if you're receiving an ad in a state where gambling is actually illegal through sportsbooks. So that's one example where we've seen kind of what you're describing work really well.
All the capabilities, these targeting capabilities, they're not things that my ad server as a host couldn't do. But the truth is, and I think it's fair to admit, is that VAST and ad serving in digital media outside of podcasting has had a far longer head start than we've had in podcasting, and we prioritize different things. So even if we take it back, not even just targeting, you had mentioned multiple creative assets, attaching tracking pixels to each of the individual creative assets, determining how you're going to rotate, whether it's even distribution and round robin, whether it's weighted distribution, so some are heavier than others, whether it's day part targeting or whatnot, whether you have the desire to just swap out the creative asset in that flow. That's the power of what VAST gives that buyer. So I could have the best hosting platform in podcasting. I could offer all of these features, and that's fantastic. But what VAST enables is consistency in features and targeting and capabilities for the buyer across multiple different hosting platforms, and consistency of data too, right? Like we talk about frequency capping. If me and you both have our own show and that advertiser says we need to frequency cap, well, we can frequency cap in our own silo, but a VAST tag would allow them to look at the frequency between both of us and make decisions on all of that too.
Yeah, I think, kind of summarizing that, VAST tag is an easy way to standardize your media buying and your creative serving across multiple hosting platforms, right? So you're not requiring or relying on the network or an ad ops team to go in and set these kind of standards across the board. You can set all of this within a VAST tag and make sure that it's consistent across the board or across all of your buys.
Yeah.
And so we look at VAST tagging, and we were talking about it last week, you and I. We look at VAST tagging in kind of two different ways. There's a decision-making portion of the VAST tagging where should a user receive an ad, that's kind of one way that you can utilize VAST tags. If not, maybe a PSA ad is served, as we talked about earlier. The other way is kind of how we're alluding to now is create how creatives are being served, which creatives are being served to each user. So not should, but which, right? And a lot of that is going to be dependent on frequencies. Has the user already received the ad? The data points the metadata that the VAST tag is receiving around the user, where they are, who they are, what type of device they're on, and things like that. So VAST tagging isn't just a way to kind of stop a user from receiving an ad if it shouldn't be receiving an ad, but it can also be a way of, like you said, making sure the user is receiving the right ad or the best ad, dependent on the brand's suitability, safety, but also just how they want their campaigns to perform and who they want to see their ads.
And I think that's a big one to think about right there, right? That decisioning that you're talking about. You mentioned brand safety and suitability. Like this is a full-fledged ad server. It means that you can take all those data points and run them through anything. And it means that these the VAST solutions like ArtsAI, your focus can be faster. It might be easier for you to integrate, and I believe you guys are integrated with a barometer, right, for brand safety and suitability that a hosting platform, my hosting platform might not be able to get that done fast enough, but I can utilize, or that brand can utilize, that VAST tag to run the campaign to make sure that that data point is in there. They can bring in their own first party data. Like it is the opportunity, because this is a third party service instead of a first party publisher hosting platform, to move a little bit quicker on data points, ingestion, sharing, and all of that. So we have the decisioning, we have the optimization through additional data. And I really think we undersell the operational aspect of it. Me and you might have talked about this before, but way back when in the digital space, I was on the receiving end of a campaign that had 3,000 different banners. And each one of them had different targeting and a different impression and click pixel. And I don't know about the rest of you, but if you've ever tried to copy and paste a lot of similar looking things from Excel, it is very easy for it to not copy the next thing that you clicked on. You didn't click on it the right way. You didn't double click or whatever. And then all of a sudden the entire campaign is a wash because you didn't really tag all 3,000. You tagged about 1,500 and doubled up a few, and there's no way to separate it. That's a nightmare, right? My skin is getting all I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about how much of a headache that is, because all that work is just thrown away. With VAST as well, the person running the VAST operation get to set that up. They get to set their own pixels and tracking. So if they want to have 100 pixels, because it's all server side, who cares? They're able to do it themselves. If they want to switch it out, if they want to test out new partners mid-campaign, it's all set up on their end to update once, and then through variables that are coming in, be able to adapt it appropriately to each one of those different creatives, the line items, the campaigns, the partners, everything.
Completely, yeah. And I mean, kind of as you were alluding to, there's so many ways that we can make manual errors when we're just uploading and removing trackers and creatives directly to a hosting platform. So fast tagging definitely helps in that. Obviously, there still is the manual process of uploading it to the VAST URL and making sure everything is working correctly. But a lot of the times, especially in the brand safety space and even the creative optimization space right now, when we're using one-by-ones and simple tagging, is a lot of our decision making is reactive, right? We're serving the ads anyways, and we are deciding after the fact if something is brand safe or brand suitable, and then kind of reacting to that. Or we're serving 10 creatives equal weight across the board, and then afterwards kind of looking at them side by side and being like, okay, these top 5 creatives performed the best, and then reacting to that after the fact. We're losing so much time and honestly just money with performance by reacting, when we could be allowing technology like VASTag to do that in real time. There still obviously will be optimizations that will have to be done in a spreadsheet and manually, and we have to react to certain things, but we can save a lot of time and effort by setting up targeting and preferences in the background prior to going live, and learning through a VAST tag and allowing decision making to happen in real time. And so kind of wanted to add that to what you were saying in terms of the whole manual process of campaigns right now. It's not just on the ad op side, it's also on the data analyst side, right? Reading the data, reading the suitability and safety metrics after the fact. You can kind of allow decision making to take a lot of that work off of their plate, and focus more on what does the next campaign look like instead of how to fix the current campaign. But
to touch on that a little bit, right? I think we're at that phase where we need to grow into creative optimization and yield optimization. And I think that we're getting there, and we're getting more and more interest, but it's definitely not the strongest area in podcasting yet. We're still focusing on, did that show work for me? Not, did that creative execution in that show work for me? Yep. We're not turning the knobs fast enough. We're not identifying things that we can improve. I want to highlight, it's easy to forget that delivery method and creative method are two separate things. You can have a host read VAST tags. That's incredibly possible, incredibly easy. The host is just recording multiple different versions of the ad, providing it to the person managing the VAST, so usually the agency or the brand themselves, and then they give that URL back to them that handles all of that. The power there is immense, right? So there are a substantial amount of brands that have stopped working with shows because of one bad ad read or two bad ad reads. Right. And there's so many factors that you don't take into account. if you did 10 ad reads because they had so many different talking points and you tried it there and you put it in a vast solution, and then yield optimization by looking at which one was driving the most effectiveness, the most response for attribution, for branding, for literally however you want to measure it, you can in real time or using the automation of these tools, because I know ArtsAI is very keen on AI automation and improvement. You can start to see like, well, out of the 10 we did, 3 are absolutely junk, 2 are salvageable, and 5 are home runs. So let's end those 3 on there and then switch the weighting, right? To be instead of, round robin for 10 of them, we now remove it. So then 5 of them get 75% of the volume, and those remaining 3 that you're not too sure about only get 25%, so that you can figure out what you should cut as well, right? Should you drop those remaining 3? Are those 5 actually as good as you think they are? Can you cut even further and figure it out? And that yield optimization, creative optimization, I feel like we're in the starting part of taking that seriously. And it's important to remember that's not just an announcer read or programmatic tool. That's literally a per show capable tool. You can do this yourself. You can host your own vast URL if your hosting platform or work with ArtsAI rather. And if your hosting platform doesn't have these ad serving capabilities for you to optimize like that.
Definitely, yeah. So, I mean, there is that option of vast tagging where you can go in and change the weight of creatives for sure. I think what we're trying to get into from the ArtsAI side, and we've done it in the past in video and display, but where we're really trying to go in the audio space is using machine learning technology, using AI technology to make that creative weighting automated and to make it smarter, right? So we've developed a product that we call AI personalization, which works through vast tagging, where essentially we're taking all of the metadata from the hosting platform and uploading it, or it's being included into our machine learning technology, into our AI technology, and the AI is actually deciding which creative is going to get served to that user, right? And so we have, like you said, 10, 12, 15 creatives read by the host. Instead of having somebody go in and be like, okay, this creative is slightly outperforming, let's increase the weight here, decrease the weight here, the AI technology is actually making the decision about which ad that user should be getting based off of their metadata. So maybe creative 1 is the highest performing ad and creative 8 is the lowest performing ad. However, creative 8 performs really well in San Antonio for iPhone devices at a certain time of day or a certain day of week. And so if you were doing it manually, or if you were kind of just looking at it on a whole campaign or whole show basis, you might say, let's turn this off, or let's really lower the weighting. The AI does that for you, and then and then finds those small little targeted audiences where it does perform well and continues to serve it there. So, the vast tagging allows for these improvements in technology. And we've seen this work immensely well in the video space, the display space, where we have tested it and run it fairly frequently. And want to definitely bring that technology to the podcasting space and kind of standardize how creative optimization works in podcasting.
And I think that's a really key thing to focus on here. This isn't like, you're not new to Vast. Vast is new for podcasting.
Right.
And so your experience with Vast, your experience with this yield optimization, a lot of people believe that they want and they know the best way to handle hands-on yield optimization. That's why I kind of default there, because I think that's part of the sell for a lot of people. They want to turn those knobs, but just as many people know that knobs need to be turned but aren't there yet. The tools that you're talking about, that automation, I'm so excited about that, because that's a great ground floor. Because when I look at that as a brand, you're going to give me input areas. You're going to be able to tell me I can list for you my threshold. Like, what does my conversion rate need to be in a green, yellow, or red status, right? Yep. Where can I take risks and can't? When do we need to throw it out and call it quits? And then the advantage of your engineer and like, data privacy is a big part of what everybody's doing, and very big for you guys as well, especially with AI. You're under further scrutiny for that, but you're still able to make generalizations. The category that my brand is in and the product is in or whatnot that we're advertising, and the category of podcasts and the demographics of podcasts, or the general areas even, or the device information, all of that, that's better than what we see in a lot of places. Because today, like, if I was to do this manually, I'm a brand new to the space, I have to spend a lot of money to get initial information to then be able to optimize, right? I have to get that information to learn. When you talk about San Antonio on Thursdays could be really great for this ad, the advantage of working with someone like ArtsAI is that that's learned through all of your campaigns together across your whole platform, not just me in a silo. Not everybody has to spend $100,000 to figure that out. You've gained that knowledge and you're waiting and learning from it day to day to make sure that it's still valuable for everybody.
Definitely, yeah. And then to your point earlier about privacy and what kind of data we can use. So up until now, we've done this in the programmatic video space. We've done this in the display space. We're receiving very high level data points to stay privacy compliant, right? We're receiving just device type, timestamps, things like that. We're not receiving first party data. We're not receiving generally even like categories as to where it's serving. Podcasting has a whole nother advantage of being able to send us granular data, to your point, around types of podcasts, around potentially audience metrics, if we can get that at a holistic level, not at a user level. And be able to optimize around that. So that's why we're really excited about bringing this to the podcasting space, is that the amount of data that we can receive that's privacy safe and compliant is a lot more than what we're seeing in other media types. And we think you can even power the AI technology exponentially and make this even more powerful for podcasting compared to other kind of areas of media where we've tested it. So that's why we're trying to push it here so hard and kind of get this industry acceptance of VAST tags, as we think we're at a unique advantage in the podcasting space to be able to utilize machine learning technologies, creative optimization technologies. It's a really, really interesting place to be right now. Yeah.
But that adoption part is really interesting. And I want to key in on that. And that's where I want to go here. This sounds perfect. This sounds like absolutely doable and amazing. My understanding is that the cost point for this, because it's such a tried and true piece of technology, is not particularly high. Right. It's in the cents range per CPM, right? Or double digit cents maybe per CPM to do all this. But that's phenomenal for an external ad server. The amount of freedom it gives you is wild. What is the pushback? Like, why, from your perspective, and I'll add some thoughts on there, why is this not available everywhere people can serve their own dynamically inserted ads? What are we missing?
Yeah, I think some hosting platform, it requires an amount. I'm not on the hosting platform side, but it requires an amount of engineering work and work on the hosting platform to support VAST tags. And so I think the pushback right now is not enough partners have requested this, or not enough people are utilizing VAST tags for us to add this to the roadmap, or if we do have it on the roadmap, to kind of add it, accelerate or add it to the top of the roadmap, right? So that's kind of the main pushback we've gotten. There's also, and I think you could probably speak better to this, but there has also been pushback in the space that VAST tags and VAST technology, the decision-making part of it, may delay our ads and hurt kind of the user experience of our podcasts. I think this is true in some scenarios, specifically maybe around that if we should serve the ad, and going through each ad, is this brand safe, or should this user be receiving the ad? And then maybe landing on a PSA ad, I could see that potentially being an issue, but nothing that's not solvable. When it in kind of the creative side of it, which ad should be served, I think we were talking, there could be some rules there in saying, like, if it's gone beyond 100 milliseconds or 50 milliseconds, we automatically serve this one specific ad. So I think that's a solve for some of those potential worries about VAST tagging. But right now, it seems like it's really just the work that has to happen on the back end of the hosting platforms that is the main pushback that we've heard from the market.
Yeah. And so let's line that up. So your hosting platform has to have dynamic ad insertion. And I think it's important to remember that all of the major, like, mid to enterprise level hosting platforms do offer that. Yeah. Whether they offer it as mid-roll or just pre-roll and post-roll, whether it's something that it's part of their platform where they'll serve for you because they're primarily running your ads versus you. Different aspects there cover it. But I think we're at a point where dynamic ad insertion has been heavily adopted. Yep. So we're in a strong point there. Further, they have to support VAST, which means when it comes time to it, that campaign, it says, okay, this campaign is eligible. it goes to look for that MP3 file to put it in and start stitching it. But really what it has to do is make another call to that VAST URL, see if that VAST URL responds back with an MP3, take that file and then cache it. And so that does take a little bit of work. It doesn't help that there's actively a vote right now with the IAB on if we should go further into VAST 4 or VAST 2, which complicates the decision on technology. But thankfully, truly, podcasting doesn't need that many signals for it, especially for what we're talking about here, which is like host run, right? Publisher run VAST URLs. But I think the biggest conflict, and I think this is worth flagging, is that programmatic advertising and VAST are kind of tied together in a lot of ways. It is, making a VAST URL call, whether it's the hosting platform or the publisher directly as part of a campaign, to a demand side partner or a supply side partner to get programmatic fill and allow programmatic decisioning is a very common way of executing programmatic and podcasting. They can do server side, they can do it through OpenRTB and direct integrations, but that's usually out of the publisher's control or more on the supply side platform side. So the problem there is that the initial entry for VAST really into podcasting where it took off was all about decisioning, because that programmatic VAST call is probably more likely than not to respond back without an ad. So that means if I were to have 12 ad requests or 12 ad placements in an episode, and I called 4 programmatic partners that took 250 milliseconds each, and only, it was the last one that always responded. That's 12-second delay to even get the files, let alone stitch them together, re-encode it, and make it available. And VAST in streaming technologies on websites and everything, that's supposed to be fired at time of impression, right? That happens in real time. Where we're doing it, because of how we call things, because VAST tends to be called in the order the campaign is available, instead of there is a download, call all VAST tags and see what is eligible and leave the campaigns on or off. Mm-hmm. If they have an eligible response, there's the waterfall method slows things down. So there is a fear behind that, because that, like we said in that example there, that series of seconds additional, where that 12 seconds adds on and then it becomes 15 and 16 and 17 for the whole file. You can't start listening to the episode until the file is built and being sent. In podcasting, you have to know the whole duration of it, how many ads are actually in there. And I don't think we've gotten to the point where timeouts are really strictly enforced on a per VAST call or even like for a whole episode. I have seen shows take 20 seconds and it not really seem to be timed out. And that's bad listener experience. And so I think that the fear right now is that we view VAST as one thing. And what we've learned today with Caleb's help is that VAST as a publisher tool, as a brand tool, as a direct sales tool is not that. It's just quick decisioning. It can be 50 milliseconds or less in many scenarios, because you can determine this response always has to provide an ad back. And you could say at a certain time, it will time out and go to its default ad if it can't decision. And that ad could be an actual brand ad or a PSA or whatnot. But the decisioning of who is going to buy it, that's where VAST gets complicated in podcasting. And so if we could separate that today, we would allow publishers drastically to change what they can and can't control without having to change hosting platforms so that they can offer, better ad serving capabilities, or without brands having to only buy from publishers on one hosting platform because they prefer that level of hands-on control.
Yeah, that's a great summary. I don't think I could say it better myself.
It's so exciting because like ArtsAI, when we first met, the first thing that ArtsAI focused on was VAST and dynamic creative optimization. And it's really important to highlight what ArtsAI has done with both AI and attribution as you've explored into this space, and that ArtsAI has been a champion of podcasting while being incredibly proficient in other areas of advertising this entire time, even being so great at all of that recently ArtsAI was acquired by Claritas, which primarily focuses on podcast attribution and some streaming, but that speaks volumes to the capabilities that you guys have there. And with the combination of the data set, the combination of the technology, I really think that this is going to be a great opportunity for ArtsAI to continue to be a champion for VAST in podcasting.
Yeah. And I was going to say, something similar. I think I think it's been amazing that we have kind of grown from outside of podcasting to start, because we've seen all of the technologies that other media, other media types have and are utilizing on a regular basis. It's kind of given us that exposure. And so certain, technologies and certain types of tags have become the norm for us in streaming, in video. And we really do want to champion bringing those technologies to podcasting and making it as easy for brands to move from streaming, to move from video, to move from display into podcasting, and knowing that all of those technologies exist there. We have kind of this idea growing around our product called Full Spectrum, which might end up being rebranded, but it's basically this idea that podcasting contains all of the same technologies as streaming, as video does. Right now, it feels a little disorganized as to where you can get those technologies and get those solutions. Our goal through Vast Tags is to bring all of those solutions to one tag, right? Yield management, brand safety, creative optimization, so on and so forth, can all be done through Vast Tags. It just takes the industry to kind of accept them universally and start relying on Vast Tags as the main tagging protocol for advertising. And so if we can kind of get everyone thinking in that mindset, I think sky's the limit for podcasting and bringing some of these technologies that have been utilized throughout the media industry, to our podcasting industry. So really excited about that, and appreciate you doing the deep dive with us today.
And let's highlight a big part of that. Like you said, brands entering in with comfort with another piece of technology or a vendor that they work with, right? That is critical. That is an area podcasting has been pretty light on. If a brand, an advertiser, buyer, whoever is comfortable with a piece of technology and is actively using it on other channels and can utilize it in podcasting, it makes it easier for them to justify the budget, the test. It makes it easier for it to not be a test or an island, because it can be measured by the same tool that they're using in other channels, in streaming audio and video and display. That is not something to sleep on. That's very, very powerful. So this technology opens up to more vendors to be in the podcasting space, and more vendors in the podcasting space to expand into this technology as well. Today, if your hosting platform has dynamic ad insertion, Caleb and I both recommend you asking them, what are the VAST capabilities? What are your abilities to enter a VAST tag that has decisioning or doesn't? Where can you set that? Can you set that as if it's a top priority campaign in your platform? And really ask them to walk you through it. It is worth pulling your team together, your ad ops team, your sales team, and understanding the capabilities there. Further, it's really important, and I emphasize this on all the deep dives, that you reach out to ArtsAI as well, because we talked about the high level here. Caleb and team were really insistent on this not being a walkthrough necessarily of their tool, but of VAST overall and the value of it, because that's the level we're at. We need to educate people on why they should want this, not here's the tool first. But I think you should reach out to them and get a direct demo anyways, because they can walk you through with it, set up a test, make sure your hosting platform works, and show you why this could be something that absolutely can win you more business, or at a minimum, not lose you business, because it optimizes a campaign and keeps that campaign running. So, Caleb, I am so thankful for you guys dedicating a deep dive all about VAS, and I am pumped to see where you guys bring this forward. I have a strong feeling we'll be talking about VAS a lot more. It sounds profitable in the next coming months. So thank you very much for being here, Caleb.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Brian. And I know you've been championing VAS for a while. I read an article you wrote back in 2021 around VAS Tag. So we appreciate the support there as well. And thanks for having us as always. It's always a pleasure.